Hello everyone, welcome to the lecture series of operating systems. So we are dealing with the third unit. In this session, we are going to see about the topic paging. In the last video, we have seen about the non-contiguous memory allocation methodology. In that, the first strategy we have seen is the segmentation. So in segmentation, we have divided the program into different parts, and each part with the programmer's point of view, and segmentation is a method which supports the programmer's point of view. Okay, so in segmentation we have seen how the segment table is stored with, and the segment table contains limit and base registers of each segment, and based on this you can access the physical address of the process or that particular segment. And now the second concept in your non-contiguous memory allocation methodology is paging. So paging is a memory management technology which is used to store your process in the main memory in a non-contiguous fashion. So the previous sessions we have seen about the difficulties or the drawbacks of your fixed and variable sized partitions, that is external and internal fragmentations. So using this paging, using non-contiguous allocation method, that is paging, you can remove the complete external fragmentation, that is wastage of memory, even though if it is wastage of memory, and you will not be able to allocate memory even though the memory is available in your device. Okay, so that external fragmentation can be removed by using this paging technique. And then it also solves the considerable problem of fitting memory chunks. So it also solves the considerable problem of fitting memory chunks of varying sizes onto the backing store. What is this backing store? Backing store is nothing but your secondary memory. See, whenever you try to save a program, the program is saved in your secondary memory. Okay, so if you the program will be saved in your secondary memory. So whenever you try to execute it, this program is brought from secondary memory to main memory. Since this main memory is very limited in size, we are going for all these memory management techniques. Okay, so if you go with the previous method, that is segmentation, in segmentation we have different lengths for each and every segment. Segment 0 may be of 100 bytes, segment 1 may be of 200 bytes. Okay, so in this case, whenever you try to remove a segment from your secondary storage and place it in the main memory, say for example in secondary storage you have a gap of 200 segment, and then 300, and then 400. Okay, so these are the segment sizes. And say for example I have moved all these segments. So I have moved segment 400 and then segment 300 into my main memory. So these two parts will become free in the secondary memory. So this is secondary and this is the main memory. So these two parts will become free in the secondary memory, whereas your main memory will occupy with that particular size. Okay, now in this case, this varying size, you have different sizes for your segments. These segments cannot be replaced back again. After completing the process execution, you need to restore these segments again back to the secondary memory. So when you are replacing or when you are restoring back these elements to your secondary storage, it is not so easy, because we may have the different sized memory gaps in your secondary memory. Okay, so in order to remove that difficulty, we are gone with the paging technique. Okay, so let us go with the basic method of your paging. So in paging, you will divide both the secondary and main memory into two parts. So both the secondary memory and then the main memory into two parts. So these sizes, the sizes of your partitions will be fixed. Okay, you will divide secondary memory into different partitions. So you will divide this secondary memory into different partitions, as well as you will divide the main memory into different partitions. Okay, and the size of this partition will be fixed. That is, say for example, if you are dividing this one single partition of size 512 bytes, okay, the next partition should also be of same size, and the other partition should also be. All the partitions should have the same equal size. Okay, so that's why we call it as a equal fixed sized partitions. Equal sized partitions, and the size is fixed. You cannot change the size of the partition whenever you need it. Okay, in prior you need to divide the partitions and then make the size as fixed size. Okay, so these secondary memory partitions are called as pages, whereas each partition here in main memory are called frames. Okay, so the secondary memory partitions are called pages and the main memory partitions are called the frames. So if you observe, the size of your page and the size of your frames should be equal. So if you fix your frame size as 512 bytes, the same size should be present in your page. Okay, your pages should also be in 512 byte size. So both pages and frames should be of same size. Okay, so whenever you execute a process, all its pages are loaded from secondary memory to the main memory. So why do we get external fragmentation? Okay, so external fragmentation in the sense, you will have the enough size but you cannot accommodate. When will be the situation which we cannot accommodate a process? So see, take an example here. This is my main memory, and this is one partition, partition 2, partition 3. So let us assume this is of 500 byte size, this is of 300, and this is of 100. Okay, so I have three different partitions, and I can, let us assume we can put only one process in each partition. So total I have three partitions. I can place three processes into the partitions. Okay, so let me consider a process P1 which is of size 350 bytes. Okay, so which is the enough partition that can store the process P1? It is 100 cannot store 350 size. So 300 bytes, in 300 bytes I cannot store 350 bytes. So obviously I need to choose the largest whole, that is 500 byte size. So I will place process P1 here. Then I have process P2 of size again 350 bytes. Okay, so here after 350 I have 150 bytes of empty space here. I have 150 bytes of empty space here. Only 350 bytes of this 500 partition were occupied by the process P1. Here I have 150 bytes, I have 300 here and 100 here. Total I have 400 plus 150. So 550 bytes of memory is available for me, but my process size is only 350 bytes. So I have more than enough memory to store this process, but since I don't have 350 bytes here continuously or here continuously, and I cannot store even in this partition. So see, I am not able to store my process in this main memory. Even though I have 550 bytes of memory, I am not able to store 350 bytes of process into my main memory. This situation is called as an external fragmentation. Okay, so this in order to remove that external fragmentation, so we are getting external fragmentation because of this size variations. Your process size is of one size and your partition is of one size. So in order to remove that external fragmentation, we have made the size of your pages and the size of your frames into equal partitions. Okay, so whenever you try to execute your process, each page in your secondary memory, each page of your process in the secondary memory is loaded into each frame in the main memory. So if I have 3 pages for my process, these 3 pages will be loaded into 3 frames. So if you think these are the frames in main memory, so frame 1, 2, 3, 4. So I can store my page 1 here, page 2, page 3. So since this is a non-contiguous memory allocation strategy, so keep in mind that paging is a non-contiguous, that is, you need not accommodate all the process at the same place. You are now dividing your process into different pages, and you can accommodate these pages wherever the free frame is available in your main memory. Okay, so now in order to make this free frame make these pages fit correctly into the main memory, you are making these two sizes into equal sizes, these two partitions into equal sizes. Okay, then so the page size here, if you observe, so the page size here, the page and frame size are equal as we have discussed, and here the page and frame size are defined by the hardware. So whatever the type of hardware you are using, the size of the page and frame will be decided by your hardware devices used in your system. Okay, generally your page size will be in powers of 2. That is, you may have 2 power, say for example 2 power 4. So 2 power 4 you will have 16 bytes. So your page size may be of 16 bytes, 32 bytes, 64 bytes, and then 128 bytes, 512 bytes, 1024, that is 1 MB. So likewise your page sizes may be decided. So in general your page size will be from 512 bytes to 1 GB per page. So each partition will be of size 512 to 1 GB of size. Okay, and at the same time the frame size also will be with 512 to 1 GB size. Whatever the size is fixed for your page, the same will be taken for your frame size. Okay, so if the size, say for example, now after deciding the page size, the address generated by the CPU is called logical address, as we have discussed. So in segmentation we have seen the logical address will consist of 2 tuples, one is a segment number and the other is a segment offset. So in the same way in paging, the logical address generated by your CPU will contain 2 parts, that is page number and the page offset. So page number in the sense you can, for say for example, if one process have 3 pages. Okay, this is my main memory and I have process P1 of page 0, page 1 and page 2. Okay, so I have process, so I have 3 process. So I have one process with 3 pages. Now I need to accommodate these 3 pages into my main memory. So let me take page 0 in frame 0, frame 1, 2, 3, 4 and frame 5. Okay, I have total 6 frames in my main memory. In that frame 0 I have page 0, frame 2 I have page 1 and frame 4 I have page 2. Okay, like this my pages are accommodated. So in page 0, if I think or if we assume our page size as 512 bytes, say for example, your CPU will execute byte by byte. Okay, for each and every byte, your CPU will take one CPU clock cycle. So what is the CPU clock cycle again? You will have 3 steps: fetch, decode and execute. All these 3 steps together are called one CPU cycle. So fetching in the sense bringing your process from main memory to CPU, decoding in the sense your CPU will find out whether the taken data from main memory is an instruction or a variable or a data. Okay, after decoding it will start executing that particular instruction. So these 3 steps will take one CPU clock cycle of time. So in one CPU clock cycle, CPU can execute only 1 byte of memory. So now if I want to execute page 1 and I want to execute 100th byte in page 1. Okay, in page 1 the CPU want to execute 100th byte. So your page number will become 1. So your page number will become 1 and the offset will become the number of byte, the location or which byte you want to execute in that particular page. So here in this case it will be some 100. Okay, so if you are having this logical address, now the logical address will be of 2 tuples. One is page number and then offset. So page number, and in that page number which byte you wanted to execute. Okay, so here if your logical address space is of size 2m, okay, and your page size is of 2n bytes, so your logical address space is of 2m bytes and your page size is of 2n bytes, then the higher order m minus n bits, the higher order m minus n bits, higher order in the sense the left side. So the more 2 powers you have in your binary code, those will be considered as higher order bits, and all the right side bits, that is 2 power 0, 2 power 1, so that other end LSB bits are called as lower order bits. Okay, so these higher order bits of your logical address will designate, that is this m minus n bits of your logical address will designate the page number, whereas the lower order n bits, that is from your LSB side, n bits you will consider as the page offset. To represent page offset, you will have n bits, and m bits you will have, m minus n bits you will have for your storing your page number. Okay, so here this page number will be used as an index to your page table, and then page offset is combined with the base address. So we'll see what is this page table now. So if you observe the diagram here, for each and every process you create, or for each and every process that is loaded into the main memory, as soon as the process is divided into different pages, for each process you will have one page table in your main memory. Okay, so since why do we need this page table is because for each process you will have number of pages. So in the at the same time in main memory you will have more than one process stored in your main memory, right? So that process, say for example process 1 is already stored in some frames, so process 2 also will have some pages, those also will be stored in your main memory. So in order to find out which frame belongs to your process 1 and which frames belongs to your process 2, you need to store the frame information of that particular process. Okay, so for that, for each process you will have one page table, and your page table contains 2 entries. So if this is your page table, it will contain 2 entries. One is your page number and the other is your frame number. Okay, say for example if my process P1 is having page 0, page 1 and page 2, 3 pages, and I have one more process P2 with page 0 and then page 1. So process 1 is having 3 pages and process 2 is having 2 pages, let us assume. So now This is my main memory. So these are my set of frame partitions. So I am accommodating frame numbers here, frame 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and then 6. So total 0 to 6 I have 7 frames in my main memory. Now I need to accommodate these pages into the main memory. So process 1 page 0 is placed in frame 0. Process 1 page 1 is placed in frame 3 and process 1 page 2 is placed in frame 6, let us assume. And then process 2 page 0 is placed here and process 2 page 1 is placed here. Now if you observe the main memory, can you identify which page 0 is for process 1? Since we already, until and unless we already have the prior knowledge of your pages, you don't know, you cannot identify which page is for which process. For that purpose, we'll have one page table for each process. Now I have 2 processes, so I'll have 2 page tables. So page table for process 1 will contain the page number and its corresponding frame number. So for page number 0, page number 1 and page number 2, I'll have a page table for process P1. So page 0 of process 1 is in frame 0 and then page 1 is in frame 3 and page 2 is in frame 6. And in the same way, we can have a page table for your process 2. So process 2 page 0 and page 1. So this is the page number and this is the frame number. Okay, so process 0's frame 0 is in frame 1, page 1 is in frame 2. So likewise, with the help of your page table, you can identify which page is corresponding to your particular process. So for each process you will have one page table. Now whenever the CPU wants to execute a particular byte of a particular page in a process, so observe the diagram here. The CPU will generate the logical address, so which consists of 2 parts, the page number and offset number. So this page number so this page number will act as an index to your page table. Okay, so if I want to execute, say for example, page 1 of process 1, so my page number will be 1. Okay, and then offset in the sense, in that particular page which byte I wanted to execute. So if I want to execute, say for example, 100th byte. Okay, so if I want to execute 100th byte in page number 1, the logical address will be generated like this. Okay, so total of size m, in which n bytes is stored to represent 100 bytes, 100 number, that is offset, and m minus n bytes are used to store the page number. Okay, so this page number is found out in your page table. So if you observe the page table here, the page number 1 is stored here. So page number 1 is having or is present in your frame 3. So that frame 3 is present here, the frame number 3. So from page table I'll get the frame number. So by taking this frame number and then taking the offset number, I will find out the actual address present in the physical memory. Okay, so now this offset number will be compared with the base and limit registers. So if you remember, in the last session we have seen about the base and limit registers. So the base contains the starting address of your process and the limit register contains the total size of your page. Okay, so if your if your page size is of 512 bytes, your limit register will contain 512 and the starting address of your page will be present in the base register. So whenever you are trying to refer a page, your offset is compared with the limit. So if my page size is 512 bytes, your base or your offset should be less than your page size. That is, your offset D value should be less than the limit register. Okay, so then only I will provide access to my main memory. So this will be compared. So if this offset is less than the size of the limit, then I will add this offset number to the base address. If my base address is 000, the 100th byte I would get by adding this base address to the offset number. Okay, then I'll get 100 as my address of the 100th byte. So this physical address will be find out in your actual main memory. Okay, so this is all about your paging. So now if you observe, this is you can consider this as an example. So you can consider this as an example. So I have in my logical memory, that is in my secondary memory, I have a process with 4 pages, page 0, 1, 2, 3, and these 4 pages are situated in frame 1, frame 4, frame 3 and frame 7 in the main memory. See, page 0 is stored in frame 1. So this is frame 1 with page 0. Page 1 is stored in frame 4. So page 1 stored in frame 4. Then page 2 in frame 3. So frame 3 I have page 2 and page 3 in frame 7. So frame 7 I have page 3 in physical memory. Okay. So likewise I can find out each and every page of a process stored in your main memory with the help of the page table. Okay. So with this paging, we can completely eliminate the external fragmentation as well as but you may have a small or little amounts of internal fragmentation, because say for example, if my process P1 is having 2 pages, so the total size of my process P1 is 1000 bytes. Say for example, my process size is 1000 bytes and the page size I have is 512 bytes. Okay, the total number of pages required for my process will be 2 pages. So 512 plus 512, 2 pages I need. So totally I will have 1024 bytes of memory. Okay, so in this first page will be of size 512 bytes. So total size of my process is 1000 bytes. So in this 1000 bytes, 512 bytes will be stored in my page 1, stored as page 1. In page 2, the size is 512 bytes. But after in 1000, if I already store 512 bytes, what will be my remaining bytes? So what will be my remaining bytes? I will have only 488 byte size. So these 488 bytes will be stored as second page, but your page size is already fixed. It is 512 bytes, but I have only 488 bytes of data. Okay, so the remaining bytes of data within that page will be wasted. The remaining bytes of space in that within that page will be wasted. So within the partition, if you get any memory wastage, you will call it as an internal fragmentation. So you may have some amount of internal fragmentation. Okay, so if you see here, so see here, observe the diagram. So observe the diagram here. Whenever you try to accommodate your pages into the main memory, the first thing you need to have, the first data you need to have is the total number of free frames. So the number of free frames can be obtained by the operating system by storing a list of free frames. So now if you observe, the list of free frames here are 14, 13, 18, 20 and 15. So these are the free frames here. So these 3, 18, 20. So these are the 5 frames that are free. So now I want to store these pages into my main memory. So this is a new process with 4 pages. I want to store these pages into my main memory. So after storing all these pages, the free frames available are only 15. So now the free frame list is only 15. So as soon as your process is placed in the main memory, one page table is created. So page number followed by your frame numbers accommodated. Okay, so that is paging. Okay, so in order to perform paging, you need some hardware support. So now let us go with the hardware support there. So let us go with the hardware support. So based on your operating system, each operating system will have different methods to store your page tables. Okay, so some of operating systems will allocate a page table for each and every process. As soon as a process is created, one page table will be generated by the operating system. And in order to refer the page table, see, if you want to refer any page, first thing you need to do is you need to check the page table to find out the frame number. Okay, so to refer that page table, you need to know where this page table is stored in your main memory again. So in order to know the address of your page table, you will maintain a pointer to that page table which points to the starting address of your page table. Okay, so when the dispatcher is told to start a process, that is whenever a dispatcher loads this process from main memory to CPU, then it must reload the registers. So the registers, that is whenever you are trying to access or trying to execute a process, the registers that are present in the CPU should be updated with this pointer address. Okay, so the remaining some of the operating systems may provide only few page tables, that is only those processes which are referred more may have the page tables and some other process may not have the page tables. So depending upon the operating system, the page table maintenance will be present. So now let us see how this hardware implementation is done for your page table. Okay, so this page table is implemented as a set of dedicated registers. So since for each and every byte of data, the CPU will generate a logical address. As soon as the CPU generates a logical address, you need to refer the page table. So if you observe, for each and every byte of data, you are going to refer the page table. So frequently you are referring the page table. So in that case, we need to have the fastest memory access devices. So this page table can be placed in the set of CPU registers. Okay, so every access to your main memory must be done through this page table. Okay, so instructions to load or modify the page table registers are privileged in the sense high prioritized instructions. So in order to access the page table, the access of your page table should be done very fast. Okay, if you take more time to access the page table, your process execution will become or it will take more access time. So to reduce that, you will implement your page table or you will store your page table in the CPU registers. Okay, so instead of keeping your page table in main memory, now I'll put a register in the with the help of a register called page table base register, PTBR, that which is a pointer to your page table. Okay, since my page table may contain many number of entries, so I cannot put my page table in registers directly. So simply I will put a pointer to my page table and that pointer is called page table base register. Okay, so in that base register I will have the starting address of my page table. So whenever you want to change the page table, you need to that is whenever you are going for a context switch in the sense, if you are trying to change your process execution, if you are trying to shift to execute, try to execute another process which is present in the main memory, you need to undergo with the context switch. So whenever you are going with the context switch, you need to go with the changing of your values in your page table base register. And the drawback in this page table base register, in maintaining your page table base register, is whenever you try to access your register, so many of the times you need to refer your page table, and the access time may be more if you put your page table in the main memory. So now if you want to access, say for example, if you want to access a location I, so we must find the index first thing is you need to find out the index of your page table, and then using that page table index, you need to get the address using the PTBR. So page table base register, you will find out the page table. So from that page table you will find out the page number. So in that page number, which frame is present, you need to get the frame number. So after getting the frame number, you need to check the offset, that is which byte should be executed. So all these actions may take some time. Okay, that is you will need to access two memory locations in your main memory. One is for your page table and the other is for your particular byte in that main memory. Okay, so that is the memory access time will be increased by a factor of 2. So once you will check the main memory for page table, and next you will check the main memory for that particular instruction. So you need to have two memory accesses in executing your particular instruction. So that will be the drawback. So with the actual, rather than the actual memory access time, you are accessing the memory with 2 or double the access times. Okay, so instead of doing that, instead of wasting such access time, we'll have one more solution to it called translation look aside buffer. This translation look aside buffer also will resemble like your page table. It also contains two values, that is key and a value. So key is your page number and value is your frame number. So only few entries. Suppose if I am having 100 pages in my process, okay, so I will put the most frequently visited pages into my translation look aside buffer, so that instead of checking all the pages in my main memory, in my page table which is present in main memory, I can simply check it with my translation look aside buffer. Okay, so this translation look aside buffer is present in your CPU registers. So since CPU registers are the fastest memory access devices, okay, so we can have the page number in a faster access time when compared with the page table which is present in the main memory. So if I have 100 entries in my page table, my TLB will have, say for example, some 32 or 40 page entries in my TLB, so that for each 40 visits or for 40 pages I can simply get the data from my register, that is TLB, where in which the TLB is present. For the remaining pages which are not present in TLB, I need to go with the page table to search the page number. Okay, so generally the TLB will be from size, or it may have the 32 to 1024 entries, that is 1024 pages, and only few page table entries of your page table are present in the TLB. If the page number is found, if your page number is found in the TLB, you will call it as TLB hit. If the page number is not available in the, in out of 100 pages I am telling only, say for example 40 pages are present in my TLB. So if I want to execute a page which is not present in TLB, I need to go with the page table again. Okay, so if the TLB is not containing my required page, I will call it as TLB miss. So TLB hit in the sense if the page I wanted is present in the TLB, I'll call it as TLB hit. If it is not present, I will call it as a TLB hit. Okay. So if the TLB is already full, that is if the capacity of your TLB is 40 entries, say for example, and if the TLB is already full with 40 entries, then you need to replace some of the entries of your TLB. Okay. So so whenever you want to replace the entries, that is the page numbers present in your TLB, then you will go with the page replacement algorithms like least recently used or round robin, and you will have many number of methods for page replacement. So we'll go with page replacement algorithms in next coming sessions. Okay, so this the next term we need to know is the address space identifiers. So address space identifiers will store from which address to which address your page belongs to. Okay, so whenever you are trying to refer a page number, so whenever you are trying to refer a page number, this address space identifiers will check whether you are trying to access the valid page numbers or not. Okay, so if you observe here the diagram paging hardware, how it is done with the TLB. So as we have seen, the percentage of times that the page number of interest is found in the TLB is called the hit ratio. Previously we have discussed what is TLB hit. The number of page, if the page I referred is present in the TLB, I will call it as TLB hit. Okay, so out of 100 pages, out of 100 pages, if TLB is consisting of 40 pages stored in it, so the total ratio in which a TLB hit may happen is 40%. So 40 pages out of 100 pages can be found in your TLB hits. Okay, the remaining TLB miss may get 60%. So this ratio in which the TLB hit can happen is called the TLB hit ratio, and this is the miss ratio. Okay, so say for example if 80% is your hit ratio, then 100 minus 80, that is 20% will be your miss ratio. So whatever the hit ratio given, so if you difference it, or if you reduce it from 100, you will get the TLB miss ratio. So now let us go with the diagram here. Okay, so now the CPU will generate the logical address with page and frame numbers. So first you will check with the TLB. So if your page is present in the TLB, you will call it as a TLB hit, get the frame number from your TLB and take the offset and find out the actual physical address. So if your page is not present in the TLB, that is if TLB miss happens, you will go to the page table and access the page table to get the frame number and then add your offset to the base and then get the address of your main memory. Okay, so this is the hardware setup with your TLB. Okay, so let us take an example of how you can access your data from the TLB and then the page tables. Okay, so let us assume if to access your main memory, if you are taking 100 nanoseconds, say for example, and then a mapped memory takes 100 nanoseconds when the page number is in the TLB. Okay, so totally you need 200 nanoseconds. Okay, so if we fail to find the page number in the TLB, then we must first access memory for the page table and then frame number you need to access the desired byte within that frame number. So total you will need, in order to get the frame number from the page table, we need 100 nanoseconds. So in order to access your main memory for a particular instruction or for a particular data, you need total of 100 nanoseconds. Okay, so in case of TLB miss, if you have TLB miss, whenever we have TLB miss, so when we'll have TLB miss, so you will check in the TLB first. So if it is not present, then you will go with the page table. Okay, that you will call it as TLB miss. So in case of TLB miss, then you need to first check with the page table. So observe the previous diagram here. So in case of TLB miss, when did you go with the TLB miss? First you will check TLB here and then you will go with the page table. So whenever you have a TLB miss, you need to check the page table. This page table is present in your main memory. So we have assumed that your page, in order to refer your main memory, you need 100 nanoseconds, and we are assuming this page table is also present in your physical memory. Okay, so in order to access a page number from your page table, you need 100 nanoseconds as we have assumed, and after getting the frame number, you need to access that particular byte. So in order to access this particular byte, you need one more 100 nanoseconds. So total you will need 200 nanoseconds to find out a particular instruction. Okay, so to find out a particular instruction, you need 200 nanoseconds, as we have discussed. Two times of your memory access time is increased. Okay, so to find the effective total time taken to access that particular instruction, we call it as effective memory access time. So in that case, in order to calculate the effective memory access time, you will take the hit ratio plus the miss ratio. If the hit ratio is, say for example, 80%, so 80% you can write it as 0.80 into the total memory access time. So if it is a hit ratio, if it is a TLB hit, okay, if it is a TLB hit, you will need to, you don't need to execute, or you don't need to refer the page table, because your page number is already found in the TLB. So you don't need to refer the page table. So the 100 nanoseconds to refer your page table is reduced. You will only need 100 nanoseconds to refer your main memory. Okay, so the total access time taken is 100 nanoseconds. If in the case of TLB miss, 80 minus 100 minus 80, you have 20% will be your TLB miss. So this is the miss ratio. So if it is miss, you will need to have 200 nanoseconds to access that particular instruction. So miss ratio into the access time, memory access time. Okay, so if you calculate, you will have 120 nanoseconds to take to access an instruction from the main memory when you have the hit ratio of 80%. So if your hit ratio is 40%, so 40 into 100 plus, if it is 40, your miss ratio will be 100 minus 40, that is 60 into total access time 200. So which will be 0.4 into 100 and 0.6 into 100. So 4 6 are 240 nanoseconds are required to access a particular instruction if your hit ratio is only 40%. Okay, so likewise you will calculate the effective access time. So for a 99% hit ratio, you can calculate like this. Okay, the CPUs may provide number of TLBs. You may have only one single TLB, or if the process size is more, if you are having more number of pages in your process, then you can have number of TLBs. Okay, so these are the examples for number of for processors supporting number of TLBs. Okay, so now let us go with the protection. So in order to protect your memory, that is, you need to access your page numbers confined to frame numbers confined to that particular process only. You should not access the frames allocated to other process. So for that purpose you need to provide the memory protection. So in order to protect your memory, that is in order to protect your main access of your main memory, you need to add some extra bits in your page table, and these extra bits are placed in your page table. Okay, so one bit can define a page to be read write or read only. So read write or read only in the sense you can define a page, whether you can modify the page or simply you can access the page is given by you, by that information is given by that particular bit. Okay, so this bits or one additional bit along with that information, one additional bit can be added to your page table, that is called valid or invalid bit. So if your bit is valid, you can say that the page is present in your main memory. If the bit is invalid, you can say that the page is not present in your main memory. Let us go with the diagram. So see here, now with the page table, instead of only the frame numbers, I'll also add one more bit of data called valid or invalid bit. So for each page, see here in main memory I have page 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Okay, so of process P1. So this process P1, page 0 is present in frame 2. So since it is present in frame 2, it is marked as a valid bit. So page 1 is present in frame 3. So it is since it is present in frame 3, it is marked as a valid bit. And then page 2 in frame 4. So again it is marked as a valid bit. And then page 3, page 4 and page 5. All these are present in your main memory. Whereas page 6 and page 7 we don't have in our main memory. So I can mark them as invalid bits. So okay, so I can mark them as invalid bits. So with this valid and invalid bits, I can find out whether these pages are already present in the main memory or not. Okay. So now let us go with the shared pages. Since if we have more number of pages like 1000 pages, 1 billion pages for a process, for a largest size process, one single page table may not be sufficient to store your number of pages. Okay, so for that you can use the shared pages. Shared pages in the sense those pages which are having the common data which can be shared with other process can be called as a shared process. The shared pages contains the reentrant code. Reentrant code in the sense you can share this code with other process. So such code which is present in a particular page, that page is called as a shared page. So you can use these shared pages between 2 or more process, and some operating system implement these shared pages using the shared memory model. Okay, so now consider a system that support 40 users. Each user may execute an application called text editor, and if the text editor contains 150 KB of code and 50 KB of data, okay, code and variables of size 50 KB, and we need 8000 KB to support 40 users. So for one text editor application you need 150 plus 50, 200 KB of data. So such 200 KB of data is being used by all the 40 users. So on a total 200 into 40 you will need 8000 kilobytes of data. Okay, so instead of instead of using or allocating 8000 bytes of data for all the users, you can simply see. So here the 3 text editor pages 1, 2, 3, editor 1, 2, 3 and editor 1, 2, 3 are common for all the 3 users. So you can simply store editor 1, 2, 3 in one single instance in your physical memory, Okay, so in one single instance in your physical memory, and the unshared pages, that is data 1, data 2 and data 3, these three can be placed in your physical memory. So instead of storing these 3 pages 3 times, I am storing it only one single time. So the shared pages will save your amount of main memory. Okay, so that is about the shared pages. Now we'll go with the structure of page tables. A page table may have different structures. So we have 3 different structures for your page tables: hierarchical paging, hashed page tables and then inverted page tables. Now let us go with the first structure, that is hierarchical page tables. So in hierarchical, the name itself indicates you will have number of levels of page tables. Okay, you can put number of levels of page tables based on the number of pages you are going to store. So one way is to use 2-level paging. Let us go with the diagram. So this is the outer page table which contains the pointers to the next level page tables. So this is page table 1, page table 2 and so on, page table n. The starting base address of these page tables are stored in the outer first level page table, and this second level we will have number of page tables. So these page tables contain the actual frame numbers of your pages. So this is the 2-level paging. So one more variation is you can have 3-level paging also. Before going to 3-level paging, let us assume how how your CPU is going to generate the logical address. So this is the page number of your first outer page table, this is the page number of your inner page table, and then the offset of that particular page. So now your logical address will contain 3 tuples. In previous concept we have seen, in normal paging, in single page table you will have page number and then offset. Now since you have 2 page tables, in order to refer those 2 page tables you will have 2 page numbers followed by the offset number. Okay, so see here, that will be your logical address with the 2 page tables. So if this is the outer page table and this is the inner page table, with first page number I will refer the outer page table. From here I will get the page number of the next page table where it is present. So with P2 I will refer this second page table. From there I will get the frame number. I will take that frame number and go with the offset to find out the actual memory present in my actual physical address present in my main memory. Okay, so next, if the 2-level paging is not sufficient, you can go with the 3-level paging also. So if you are going with the 3-level paging, you can see here, this is the second outer page. So the outermost one you will have at last, and then you will have 2 levels of page tables and then the offset. So to refer each page we have 3 levels. Since 3-level page tables, I will have 3 pages here followed by the offset number. Okay, and that is about the hierarchical paging. And hashed page tables, you will have one virtual page number in your hash table followed by the frame number and a pointer to the next element of the linked list. In hashing technique we'll have, so in hashing technique we'll have your memory as like this. You'll have your memory, and each memory partition will have an index number. In order to store some data, I'll use some function. Say for example, if this is my data, say for example I wanted to store in my main memory. So in order to store this, I need to put this data into some function. So say for example my function is kmod 10. I'll get the index number of this main memory. So k is my data. So 40 mod 10. So I'll have the remainder 0. So since 0 is my index number obtained, I will store this 40 in index 0. Then the next number is 41. If you assume the remainder is 1, I will store it in the index 1. So in order to get the next location, I'll store these addresses in linked list. So in that linked list, first is my page number, second is my frame number, and third will be pointed to the next linked list. You can observe this in the diagram here. So see here, this is the logical address generated, page number and offset number. So this page number is undergone with some hash function, as we have seen. So undergone with some hash function. Say for example, we have considered k mod 10. So after obtaining the index, I will store it in the hash table. So this hash table will contain the page number and then the frame followed by the address of the next pointer, the data and then the address of the next pointer. So there, from there I will get the frame number, followed I'll attach the offset and then find out the actual physical address which is present in the main memory. So that is hashed page table. And clustered page table is a variation of your hashed page table. So instead of having different hash tables, you will put some related hash tables into one cluster, that is cluster in the sense group. So you will group it as one cluster and refer that cluster in order to access number of page tables. Okay, and then the third method you have is the inverted page table. So the inverted page table has one entry for inverted page table. So previously, if you observe, I am having page numbers as my indexes for page table and frame numbers as entries. Now I will have frame numbers as entries and frame numbers as indexes of page table, and I will have page numbers as entries of my page table. Okay, so instead of maintaining number of page tables, I can simply maintain one page table for all the processes present in main memory using inverted page table. So if I have 10 frames, whatever the process I bring into the main memory, I can accommodate only those 10 frames. If all the 10 frames are full, I need to remove a page from the main memory and then accommodate one more page into that same frame. Okay, so the total number of frames will not change. So simply I will put my page table with the number of frames and I will replace the page numbers. Okay, so that's about the inverted page table. So now your virtual address system will contain the process ID, page number and then the offset. Now your page table, in order to refer your inverted page table, your CPU will generate the logical address as 3 tuples: process ID, page number and offset. So for your inverted page table, you will have process ID and then page number as your page table entries. So with this process ID and page number, I can find out a particular page in the inverted page tables. Okay, so this is the inverted diagram for your inverted page table. So if you observe here, the CPU will generate the logical address with process ID, page number and offset. So this process ID is found out by using your inverted page table. So for this process ID, that particular page is stored in some frame. Frame number will be your index 0, 1, 2. If 3 is your frame number, so process ID 1, page number 1 is stored in frame 3. So that frame is taken, that index. So index will be your frame number. So this index is taken, attached with the offset number, and then find out your actual physical address of your main memory. So instead of storing many page tables for each process, you can simply store one single page table for all the processes present in your main memory using inverted page tables. Okay, so So that's all about your page tables, and thank you for watching this video. In next video we'll see about the virtual memory concepts. Thanks for watching.